Good morning, June 16th, 0747. We are on the 406 and about to join the A40, and we're going to Marylebone. Lovely Marylebone. I'm back with my boy Luke. Me and Luke are just like, we're inseparable now, you know, he's become my best friend. You know, I rely on my man. Rely on my boy Luke. So now you guys have seen racism part 1 and part 2, and I think I made myself very clear what my views are. And yesterday we started making a video, me and Luke, about what we like about Britain. And I listened to it yesterday. I didn't really like the way it went. I don't normally do this, where we reshoot the video entirely, but I just think it was a bit rushed, and so we're going to do it again. Now, I talked about British people being reserved, and another quality of British people is that we tend to be quite pessimistic. Pessimistic about our chances at doing well in a lot of things, especially sport. No one's ever really very optimistic about how England's going to do in the World Cup or the Euros. Recently there has been reason to be optimistic, but you know, British people tend to be quite pessimistic. That's my opinion about, you know, the country's future. And I thought, with the current climate being the worst that it has been in a while, in terms of national pride and hope for peace and tranquility amongst citizens, amongst races, ethnic groups, whatever you want to say, things haven't been so great in the last couple of weeks. So what we wanted to do, Luke and I, is we wanted to talk about things that can make us feel proud about the country that we have grown up in. And so we decided to list a few things. And yesterday I talked to my number one thing that I like about this country, and something that I used to do a lot of research when I was young was on the British military and the army specifically, but the defence forces, so the Army, Navy and Air Force, with no particular importance going to any one of the branches. They're all exceptionally well trained. I know more about the Army than the Navy and the Air Force. But when I was young, I used to want to be a soldier. There were reasons why that never transpired or never materialized, and a lot of it had to do with the fact that I had moved to the States when I was 18, and at that time I was discovering myself. I was discovering you know, socializing with people of the opposite sex, going out, doing things. It was a strange and interesting time, and my priority at that time was getting better at those social situations. It was enjoying myself, going out, meeting people, you know, drinking, having a good time. It wasn't really about knuckling down and going into the forces, because that was the opposite of what I wanted to do, really, when I was 18. And I realised, and I was smart to not have done it, in my opinion, because I wasn't ready to do it. You can't join the army haphazardly and just say, oh, I'm joining the army today, I feel like maybe it might be good for me. You got to go in there with the attitude that, you know, this is a total change of lifestyle, you know, really get yourself in gear, get yourself in a disciplined mindset before you go in, so it's not a massive shock to the system suddenly that, oh my god, I have to live my life by rules, you know. But it never transpired because things, you know, happened to me in my life that have now not allowed me to do that, and I'm just too old now. But when I was young, I was really into the British military, and one of the reasons why I speak so passionately about this country is because from very early age I was researching the military prowess, the military history of this country. And one of the best things about this country, or one thing that I will always, if somebody asks me, what do you like about Britain? One of the things that I will quickly, because I think it's probably the best thing about Britain, one of the best things about Britain, is that we have the most highly trained special forces unit in the world, and arguably the most highly trained soldiers in the world. I mean, even our Royal Marines would be like elite soldiers in any other country. I mean, I've met Americans, yeah, who have trained with the Royal Marines, okay, and they're like, man, those Marines, man, he's like, those Royal Marines, man, they're badass, man, they're badass. And I'm like, mate, that's just the fucking Marines. It's not even the regiment, right? Of which I think there are about 600 men. Okay, 600 men only. So it's a very small regiment. It's not like the Green Berets or something that have a few thousand. Okay, we're talking about a highly specialised, highly elite unit of soldiers, of which, you know, there is a total 600 men in the entire world. Okay, and if you're going to talk about special forces, the SAS were founded by a guy called David Sterling back in World War II. Okay, and David Sterling realised the need for covert operations, especially in North Africa, using the Pink Panthers, those jeeps that were painted pink so you couldn't see them in the sun, right? And they used to go around on these little sort of, you know, fast attack vehicles, and they would do raids on German occupied territories and bases. And basically, with just a few men, they would go in and cause chaos for the Germans, and then get out before anybody could have known that they were even there. And because of the ferocious, the ferocity with which they attacked, the accuracy with which they attacked the Germans, it was sometimes they would feel that they were being attacked by a much larger force than just a few men that were doing the damage. And that's the key to any special forces unit, is the element of surprise, and overwhelming the enemy so much in such a short period of time that they don't realise what's going on, and they think that they're being attacked by a very large force, when in fact, in reality, you've just let a few really highly skilled soldiers into your base, and they basically caused chaos for you and killed a lot of your men. And the SAS were founded by David Sterling. Their emblem is the famous winged dagger, okay, and their motto is "Who dares wins." Anybody who's British should know those three words, "Who dares wins," and should know what "Who dares wins" is referring to. It's referring to the SAS. In the army, they don't call them the SAS, they simply refer to the SAS as the regiment. Okay, the regiment. Why is it the regiment? Because it's the regiment, it's the best regiment. Nothing else to say. The best regiment, the hardest regiment, the most skilled military regiment in the British Army, and hence the world. Because if you're the best in the British Army, you're the best in the world. And they got disbanded shortly after World War II. Don't ask me why. I'll have to go back into my research and find out. But there was a general feeling that these type of soldiers weren't really required. And the amount of money and training and energy that goes into training one of these soldiers to keep them as good as they actually are, throughout the years. It costs a lot of money, and they got disbanded. But then they were recreated, and the SAS came back in to the British Army, and they've been in ever since. Okay, and many special forces units around the world, the German GSG-9, the Israeli Special Forces, the American Delta Force, the Navy SEALs, SEAL Team 6, you could even say the Russian Spetsnaz, Korean Special Forces. They all have modeled themselves, or at least referred to the systems created by the Special Air Service. Okay, the Delta Force, which is the Americans' primary counter-terrorist unit, they are specifically modeled on the SAS. Okay, SEAL Team 6, which is the anti-terrorism unit in the SEALs, also modeled on the SAS. But the SEALs' history is slightly different. In World War II, or I think the Korean War, I can't remember which, there was a group of American soldiers called the UDTs, or the Underwater Demolition Teams. And the underwater demolition teams used to basically swim and attach explosives to submarines and ships and things, and they would do covert amphibious warfare. And in 1960s, at the onset of the Vietnam War, John F. Kennedy decided to create what he realized would be a useful unit, a unit that could operate on all terrain, sea, air, land, with a specialism in sea, a specialism in amphibious warfare. And so the UDTs became the Navy SEALs, and within the Navy SEALs you have SEAL Team 6, which is your anti-terrorism section of the Navy SEALs. Even though all Navy SEALs will have a certain element of anti-terrorism training, they do have a particular unit which is like, they're really good at that one thing. And the Navy SEALs were modelled on the Navy's version, the British Navy's version of the SAS, which is the SBS, and they're the Special Boat Squadron. Okay, another highly trained, you can say as good as the SAS, highly trained unit coming out of the British Navy. And the Navy SEALs were created, modelled on the Special Boat Squadron, and within the Royal Marines there is also a highly specialised elite unit which is called the Royal Marines Mountain Troop. Okay, so if you're a Marine and you've decided that you want to sort of climb the ranks a bit and do something a bit more challenging, then within the Royal Marines you can go up a level and you can become a Royal Marine Mountain Troop, and it's a lot harder and requires a lot more discipline and self-control. And in America you have Force Recon. It's so cheesy. You Americans make me laugh sometimes. So you got what the in the Royal Marines, the unit that you can sort of up a level in, if you're already in the Marines and you want to go up a level, is Force Recon. And then from there you got the SEALs. You can try and get into the SEALs. Now, in order to become a SEAL, you need to be university educated. So from the early stages of a soldier's life, if you were to compare British versus American, in that very early stage, I would say that the Americans have a good thing going for them in that they require you to be university educated before you can join the SEALs. But the SAS have soldiers in their ranks who don't even have GCSEs, right? And they're still better. So why are they better? It's because you don't really need to be highly educated to be an excellent soldier, and it's been proven through the SAS. But if a person was highly educated, right, it can't hurt them, right? It can't hurt their analytical skills, their ability to solve problems. It can't help. But really, soldiering is more about common sense and discipline and willing to put your body through things that other people won't, and just keeping a cool head on your shoulders during times of extreme tension and pressure. And so at that early stage, I would say the Americans might be in a better position, but it just goes to show that, like, education isn't the be all and end all. Like, we're creating soldiers that are as good as the SEALs, if not as good, they're even better. And yet, our guys are just regular guys, right? So as you're coming up through the army, they're obviously teaching you what you need for your training. And I suppose, being an engineer and being good at technology and things like that is a really important part of modern soldiering. You've got to be able to use sat-nav, and you've got to be able to operate, especially if you're in the SAS and you're involved in sort of the spying side of things, which is where, we were doing a lot of the plainclothes policing and spying and reconnaissance during Northern Ireland conflict, when a lot of the SAS were just dressing up as regular people, and they were going out on the road and trying to figure out, a mark, trying to figure out, where these guys were and where the weapons caches were and where they were trying to. Yeah, it was hardcore. Read immediate action, and you'll learn about that aspect of SAS training. And in that, I'm sure nowadays, because that was back in the 80s and 70s, right, when Andy McNabb was in the SAS. But nowadays there'll be a lot of technology, a lot of technology will be there. So having an education might help in that regard. So Americans, are onto something there. But it's not a requirement. It's not like a prerequisite. You don't need it to be a good soldier, is what I'm saying. And the training differs between the SEALs and the SAS. The SEALs beast you, kind of like how they do in the Marines and kind of how they do in the Paras. They beast you. You son of a bitch, you motherfucker, come on, get up, I'm gonna cut your head off and shit down your neck. And there's constantly somebody shouting at you and telling you and motivating you and saying to you, come on mate, you gotta fucking move, yeah? Right, this is the SEALs, we're training, come on, keep on doing push-ups, pull-ups. The SAS make no such thing, okay? There might be a few bleep tests and things like that to weed out, your pretenders, to weed out your bodybuilders, your muscle boys, yeah? To weed them out and keep the hard bastards in, right? And after that, the way that SAS operate is they give you a location and they give you a load and they give you your personal weapon and your webbing, right? And they say, right, we're gonna RTU, right? Sorry, not RTU, we're gonna rendezvous at this point, and I need you to get there in 3 hours. And your job as a soldier would be to read your map and figure out the best way to get there. And if you don't get there on time, and you need to be given a warning by the DS, right? Then you won't get a second warning. You don't show up on time a second time and you'll be RTU'd or returned to unit. You failed. And if you fail twice, you will never be allowed to get into the SAS, and you will never be allowed to try to get into the SAS again. So you have 2 shots, and you can go for winter training or you can go for summer training. Doesn't matter, they're both hard. You're either walking in the heat in the British summer, in the Brecon Beacons, or you're working in conditions that might kill you and die of hypothermia. Right? It's your choice, whatever you prefer. If you prefer walking in the cold, you can go for winter selection. If you prefer the summer for whatever reason and the conditions are more suitable for your person and you want to get in, then you can go for summer selection, right? But you will only get to try twice, and after that you're not coming back, son, right? Your chance is over, and it's a less than 10% success rate. So that means that less than 10 out of 100 people who try to get into the SAS get in, and that is the hardest pass rate of any special forces unit out there. And what makes SAS training so special is that they give you a distance that you've got to march, they give you a load that you've got to carry, they got to give you a time that you've got to do the march in, right? And it starts off with 5 or 6 guys walking together, and then as the days go on and you become more and more tired, you end up walking solo. And when you're walking solo, there's nobody there to say to you, I'm going to shit down your neck. There's nobody there to motivate you to keep on going. So you need to find something within yourself, and you need to say to yourself, I'm going to do this and I'm going to make it. And you need to motivate. And that's what makes SAS soldiers so special, is they're just not relying on anybody else. They're not being pushed by anybody else. It's self-motivation completely. And that's a philosophy from the very beginning. So if you're not already a good soldier when you go try out for the SAS, if you're not already an advanced map reader, if you're not already really good at knuckling down, digging a hole and sitting in it for hours if need be, silently, and accept that sitting in a ditch and being cold and being wet, yeah, all right, if you haven't already accepted that that's part of Special Forces life, and that's something that you learn to enjoy after a while, shitting in a plastic bag and taking it with you to not leave any trace of yourself to the enemy, right? If you're not already used to that, and if you're not already happy to do all that sort of stuff, then you've got no business trying out for the regiment, yeah? And they'll figure you out quick. Those boys ain't joking about, mate, over there. I know a lot about the Special Air Service, and the hardest bastards in the world, yeah? They're the hardest bastards in the world, and I don't care what you say. I met a Navy SEAL when I was in the US once, right? I met a Navy SEAL in the US once, and when I found out he was a SEAL, I asked him to his face, I said, mate, who's the best out there, man? Like, which guys do you reckon are the best trained, and which guys are the ones that the world is trying to be like in the soldiering world, you know? And do you know what his answer to me was? Yeah, very simply, he's just like, it's the Special Air Service. That's coming from a SEAL, yeah? It's just Special Air Service. The Special Air Service train the SEALs, mate. They give them tips. And the British are really good at making sure that those secrets don't get out, you know? You'll never, ever, ever, you can try as hard as you like to be like the SAS, you ain't never going to be like them. You can try and you might get 90% there, but the 10% that's left is going to be 10% that's going to blow you out the water when the shit hits the fan, because that's something that this country's good at. Soldiering. So whenever somebody asks me why I'm proud to be British, I always hark back to my childhood, and I always say to myself, you know what did I like about this country, and what fascinated me about Great Britain when I was young? What fascinated me about this is that they got the hardest soldiers in the world. Yeah? Hardest soldiers in the world, and I think that's an incredibly cool thing, and I think that's an incredibly amazing thing to be able to say about the country that I love, is that we got the best army, best trained army. That's called a "don't fuck with us" army, yeah. Because we will batter you in combat. Americans have got the technological advantage. I ain't gonna lie. I spoke about that yesterday in the video, but I'm gonna say it again. Americans got the technological advantage because they've got a lot of money. And I was just telling Luke yesterday, the amount of money that the Americans spend on their military budget is the same, or is more than the GDP of Poland, the gross domestic product of Poland. So everything that Poland spends on everything, food, social welfare, roads, military, hospitals, everything, absolutely everything that the Polish people spend on their country in a year is not even as much as the Americans spend just on their military. So obviously the Americans are going to be really good at the technological side, and I'm not going to say that we can mess with them on that side. They're the best, you know. They've got the best toys for boys to play with. They got the best toys, but we got the best soldiers. And in the SAS, the series of timed marches is done in such a way that a person goes from being in a team to eventually marching solo, and if you make it through that phase, you get to the next stage of selection, and the next stage of selection is called escape and evasion. And escape and evasion is when they send you out with a pocket knife and a couple of matches or nothing, and they say to you, right, fuck off, yeah, go and hide somewhere, and we're sending the paras to come find you. And the parachute regiment, which is where the SAS recruit a lot of their soldiers from the paras, who are also badass, okay, they come and hunt you down, and after they hunt you down, they interrogate you and they torture you, and they make you sit in stress positions for a really long time, and the only thing you're really allowed to tell them is your name, your rank, and your serial number, or some shit like that, right? And that's all you're allowed to tell. And they test your metal, and they test your minerals, and they want to find out, you know, that in those situations when we're really making you uncomfortable, you know, what is your reaction? Because it's not until a person gets in those type of situations where you're stripped naked and girls make fun of your size of your willy, and you know, you're freezing cold, and you're sitting cross-legged, and you're blindfolded, and you're had water poured on you, and all sorts of different things. It's in those situations that you sort of get an idea of who a person is, and whether or not you want to have that person with you, you know, in battle. A person you're going to take with you in a 4-man patrol behind enemy lines, yeah? It's a way of knowing. It's a way of knowing that person is not going to break down. And the SS have got their ways of figuring that out. They've seen it all before, right? They're not new to this, right? So they know who to select. They know the guys that have what it takes. And then after escape and evasion, you're not in, but you're close. If you pass escape and evasion, you will then enter what is called continuation training. And in continuation training, they will send you for a year, or 6 months, sorry, to Malaya, which is an old former colony of the United Kingdom, and that is where the SAS do jungle training. And it's in the 6 months of jungle training that you become a topographical map reader. So you become an advanced topographical map reader. You are excellent at jungle ambushes, jungle survival training, and you learn how to make all sorts of things so that you can survive in the jungle. And so basically you need to use your common sense. And there's a lot of people, not a lot, sorry, I'll rephrase that. There are some people who have passed selection but failed at continuation training. So your training ain't even over yet, right? Your training has just entered the second phase. And if you go into continuation training and you think to yourself that I'm in and I can relax, don't relax, because you may not get your beige beret at the end, right? You might get kicked out in continuation training because there are aspects of your personality that don't suit the SAS, right? But if you do pass continuation training, you'll be covered in zits and boils, yeah, because they send you out in the jungle for 6 months and you barely shower in that time. You carry an extra pair of clothes with you, a dry pair, and you wear your soggy pair throughout the day. And trust me, the grit and sand and the dirt and everything gets inside your clothes and it causes all sorts of problems. And at the end of 6 months, those soldiers look like they've, you know, been through a war. And that's what the SAS are doing. They're making you uncomfortable, seeing how you handle it. And yeah, then after those 6 months are over, you then are given your beige beret and you enter the Special Air Service as a soldier of the Special Air Service. You're now in. Once you're in, you then increase your skills by joining the Sabre squadrons: air troop, boat troop, mobility troop, or mountain troop. And in your time in the SAS, you may get 2 Sabre skills. You might specialize, so you'll know everything, you'll know how to do everything, but you may specialize in a couple of bits. You might specialize in high altitude, low opening parachute training. You might specialize in high altitude, high opening parachute training. You may specialize in the use of vehicles, fast attack vehicles, tanks, and that sort of thing. You may specialize in Arctic mountain survival. So you'll learn how to climb Everest. So in the SS, there are guys who are really, really freaking good at trekking and hiking, and they're amazing and they love it. And those people that are good at mountain warfare or show an aptitude in that area get pushed into mountain troop, and it's from the mountain troop that a lot of the snipers are found, because it's the ones that have that special patience, the ones that are used to being alone all the time, that tend to make good snipers. So they're selected from mountain troops sometimes, but it could be from any troop really. But mountain troop, those guys are having the sorts of qualities that make for good snipers, right? And there's boat troop. Boat troop are the guys that specialize in amphibious warfare, canoes, 4-man submarines, boats, you know, hovercraft, anything like that, amphibious training. And that's it, the 4 different troops: mobility, air, mountain and boat. And then obviously within the SS there are different courses that you can go on as you progress. You can become good in signaling, you can become good in explosives, so you do a course in explosives. You can become a good in weapons, and so as you go through the SAS, you pick up various other skills.